Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Chris Beers. Here are today's top stories. President Trump threatening 25% tariffs on the 8 European nations that recently sent troops to Greenland. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says on Sunday, we are not going to outsource our national security. We explore the rationale for the tariffs with a geopolitical analyst. The U.S. military announces killing an al-Qaeda affiliate leader. The individual had ties to a gunman who killed 3 U.S. citizens in Syria last month. President Trump set to dominate the World Economic Forum at Davos in the coming week with the largest U.S. delegation ever. What issues the president is expected to address? The Trump administration might send 1,500 active duty soldiers to Minnesota. What the president says about the ongoing violence on immigration enforcement agents. Protests erupt in central London over plans for a massive new Chinese embassy there. Why analysts are saying it could pose a national security risk. And how to overcome mental barriers to achieve optimal health and success. Vital Signs' Brendan Fallon and entrepreneur Mark Hutchison look at how a leading American neurosurgeon overcame a life crisis and rediscovered balance.
This is NTD News Today, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump announced on Saturday that the U.S. will impose new tariffs on 8 European countries opposing Washington's plan to acquire Greenland. Top White House aide Stephen Miller said Denmark cannot defend Greenland. He added that it is unfair to the American taxpayer who has subsidized all of Europe's defense. The tariffs are set at 10% for now and start February 1st. They will impact NATO countries Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland. Trump says the tariffs, which increased to 25% on June 1st, will be enforced until a deal is reached for the purchase of Greenland. The president has maintained that acquiring Greenland is necessary to protect the Western Hemisphere from Russia and China.
Greenland is essential for America's national security. The new domain of international competition is going to be polar competition. That is where more and more resources are being spent by our nation's adversaries and rivals, is the ability to control movement, navigation, lanes of travel in the polar and Arctic regions.
Leaders of both Denmark and Greenland have insisted the island is not for sale and does not want to be part of the United States. On Saturday, protesters voiced their opposition to the U.S. taking the semi-autonomous Danish territory.
Greenland is 25% larger than Alaska. Greenland is the size of 1/4 of the continental United States. With respect to Denmark, Denmark is a tiny country with a tiny economy and a tiny military. They cannot defend Greenland. They cannot control the territory of Greenland. Under every understanding of law that has existed about territorial control for 500 years. So they want us to spend hundreds of billions of dollars defending a territory for them that is 25% bigger than Alaska at 100% American expense. But they say, while we do this, it belongs 100% to Denmark. It's a raw deal. It's an unfair deal. And most importantly, it's unfair to the American taxpayer who have subsidized all of Europe's defense for generations now.
Trump said the United States is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and any country mentioned in the tariff announcement. Trump's special envoy to Greenland, Jeff Landry, is set to visit Greenland in March. He believes a deal can be made.
Greenland is essential to the U.S. national security. We're building the Golden Dome, the missile system. And look, President Trump is being strategic. He's looking beyond this year. He's looking beyond next year to what could happen for a battle in the Arctic. We are not going to outsource our national security.
European leaders criticized President Trump on Saturday following his move to increase tariffs on European allies until they come to the table over selling Greenland. French President Emmanuel Macron said tariff threats are unacceptable. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer wrote in a statement that Greenland's future is a matter for the Greenlanders and the Danes. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni said Saturday that strengthening security in Greenland should be discussed within a NATO framework, adding that a ground intervention would be very difficult. The European Council president said the EU was very firm in defending international law. Germany has pulled 13 soldiers from Greenland. They were there for a 2-day mission to bolster Greenland's defense, along with several other European countries. Joining me now to discuss the strategic significance of Greenland to the United States is geopolitical analyst Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb. Darren, good to have you back. What is the significance of Greenland on the world stage?
Yeah, Greenland's more important than a lot of people have realized for many years, but that's the reason why Russia and China have been spending so much time in the Arctic trying to make sure they can control as much as possible. If you were to take the map and adjust your view of it, rather than looking at the equatorial view of your typical world map and turn that to where you're looking down from the North Pole, you'd realize that Greenland dominates it. That's access, that's all these things. And they have other things like rare earth minerals. And not only is it access to the Arctic, but frankly, they have good access to the North Sea shipping lanes around Iceland as well. So there's a lot that can be done with Greenland. And if you get past the politicians that are kind of posturing about this whole thing and talk to the people like I do in Denmark, who are part of my Veterans Coalition, they're going to tell you that, frankly, most of the time, they don't even think about Greenland. They spend $9 billion or more a year, or euros a year, on Greenland, and they don't even know why. So it would be money they could keep. They could make some more, frankly, and take it off their plate of having to even worry about it. So again, the people of Denmark are different than their politicians, as always. And I think this could be a positive move if we do it peacefully and just outright buy it versus anything else.
And to President Trump's reason for this, he said his Golden Dome initiative can only function at its maximum potential if Greenland is included in its geographic scope. What role do you think Greenland would play in that project?
Greenland would look a lot like what Alaska is. It's an early warning and early interdiction for theater intercontinental ballistic missiles and things like that. And so it moves the dome basically further away from mainland American shores and increases its reach. And frankly, if people in Greenland and Iceland and some other countries were to look at it honestly, they'd realize that by us doing that, we're actually increasing not only the ability to defend ourselves as America, but some of that would actually influence and have positive impacts on the self-defense of some of those other nations that function in or near the Arctic regions.
Okay, and President Trump also said, like you mentioned, China and Russia want Greenland. How vulnerable is this island of 54,000 people?
Well, if you're talking about militarily, it's vulnerable to almost anybody at this point. And frankly, only about 7 to maximum 10% of the entire island is actual Danish people. The rest of it is mostly Inuit. Their military is basically non-existent. And anybody who wanted to could largely just walk in there, even though there would, of course, be international outcry and consequences, and rightfully so. And I don't see anybody trying to actually militarily invade Greenland anyways on any side. They're going to try to dominate the island itself via other means without causing that international outcry. But, America's already there too. We've already got an air base in Greenland, so this is not exactly new for us either. So there are many positives to us being able to help with Greenland as well. And that, in the end, that frankly does help NATO as a whole.
And like we discussed moments ago, European leaders are raising concerns about Trump's tariff threats, to say the least. Could his threat against these 8 NATO countries that sent troops to Greenland recently, could that destabilize NATO? And what would that mean for U.S. national security?
This act by itself, I don't think would destabilize NATO. This is mostly political posturing over the current argument. It can be done differently, of course, mostly focused on economics rather than exchanging military personnel. This is really, frankly, not a military mission on either side of this equation. But the tariffs is basically a way to lead the debate economically, which is Trump's way of doing business, and it tends to be fairly effective. It's not always a win, but it can work. And frankly, NATO needs to realize the fact that they can't defend Greenland anyway. So this is all about mostly your national politicians trying to posture for position and not acknowledge the actual reality on the ground in the first place. Most of the time, the Danish don't even realize that there's a Greenland, or they don't really care because it's not really a part of their national equation other than sending them money.
Talk a bit about the threats from China and Russia. I mean, what critics to this move, to Trump's move to acquire Greenland, say there is no imminent threat to Greenland. And of course, he's seeing something broader than, maybe next week.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the things that DC is not very good at is recognizing imminent threats, because they don't think out far enough in the first place and realize what other nations are doing. So is there an imminent threat to Greenland from a military invasion from China or Russia? I would agree that that's probably not realistic. But what is true is that China and Russia seek first to economically dominate regions of the world, or be the predominant influence over them, which Greenland is certainly subject to, as they try to control the Arctic and plant their flag in order to gain resources everywhere from rare earth minerals to oil to other things. So that part is real. I don't see them going to Greenland and trying to militarily occupy and then claim ownership of it. That would not go well for any country attempting to do that.
And just before we move on, I'd like to touch on Iran a little bit. Before that, the president describes this move by these 8 nations that we were talking about moments ago as a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. That is a much bigger scope than the United States. What is at stake here beyond U.S. national security?
Well, one of the things that's at stake is whether or not NATO can stay together as a cohesive organization focused on the defense of mainland Europe and the United States against any aggressor, regardless of whether they might come from Russia or China. You can debate whether or not that threat is truly real, that's for sure. But that as an organization for sure is something that would be of concern. You layer that against the problem that's happening in Europe right now, which is essentially many nations being overrun by illegal aliens who've moved in there and turned some of these nations almost entirely Islamist in their governance and their outlook on life. Look at France, the UK, and others. And so that's part of really like the threat to humanity is the resurgence and growth of the Chinese Communist Party influence, which is waning but not gone. The threat of Russia, as always, whether that's real or not, is open for debate. And then the actual loss of Western cultures throughout Europe. By the time you start peeling back that onion and realize what's going on, NATO doesn't look like NATO because Europe's starting to not really look like what Europe is supposed to be. And it grows out from there, and it doesn't get any better.
Now, you're bringing in the Middle East, which is a perfect segue here. In the past few days, President Trump thanked the Iranian regime for not executing 800 protesters there. Then he told Politico it's time to look for new leadership in Iran. How would you characterize the president's disposition toward Iran right now?
I think he's, in his mind, trying to thread this needle to where he's not creating such a antagonistic threat towards Iran to where they feel they have no choice but to consider like these public hangings and executions and things like that, while also never leaving diplomacy out of the equation entirely, trying to give it a chance. What I will say is that the statement about the executions, although accurate as far as them not publicly executing people, at least for now, I dare say that is happening regardless behind the scenes and probably inside prisons. And I don't think he doesn't know that. I just think he didn't say it. The Iranian regime will do whatever it takes to maintain its power, and they don't care how many people they kill in the first place.
Colonel,
but go ahead.
Yeah, with 30 seconds remaining, what is the recent uprising against the Iranian regime that we've been hearing so much about? Tell us about the regime's future.
This is the best chance the people of Iran, or as I say, Persia, have to be able to throw off their dictators. It's the best chance they've had since the early 70s to get back an Iran that could be there, which is healthy and prosperous and good for for the citizens of that great nation. And I hope it does work out, but they've got to maintain the momentum. They can't quit. And we have to do what we can to help without really boots on the ground or military interaction to an extent that is beyond maybe hitting some key sites or targets like that.
All right, Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Reports emerged that the U.S. Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation of Minnesota officials over an alleged conspiracy to impede immigration agents. Here's more.
The U.S. Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation of Minnesota officials, including Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. They're being probed over an alleged conspiracy to impede immigration agents. The source, who spoke on the condition of anonymity, said subpoenas were prepared for Walz and Frey as part of the inquiry. Both responded to news of the probe on social media. Walz said the federal justice system was being weaponized against Trump's perceived political enemies, calling it an authoritarian tactic. While Frey said it was, quote, an obvious attempt to intimidate me for standing up for Minneapolis local law enforcement and residents against the chaos and danger this administration has brought to our city. The Justice Department declined to comment, though U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a social media post on Friday evening, a reminder to all those in Minnesota, no one is above the law.
You saw the governor and the mayor actively encouraging criminals to go out on the street and impede ICE. That is not allowed under our law. But listen, no matter who you are, whether you're a governor, a mayor, or somebody out there on the streets assaulting ICE, you cannot, under federal law, you cannot impede a federal officer doing their job. And that's what we're looking at.
Staying with Minnesota, the Trump administration is reportedly directing 1,500 troops to stand ready and possibly deploy to Minnesota. That's according to multiple outlets citing unnamed administration officials. This comes just days after President Trump warned he might invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy soldiers to that state. That's if state officials do not start combating anti-ICE violence. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy Stephen Miller commented on the issue while on Fox News.
These are acts of insurrection against the laws of the United States and against the sovereignty of the United States. Foreign illegal aliens who broke into this country, who then raped children, who committed human trafficking, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, protected, shielded, sheltered, coddled, defended at every level by the leadership in Minnesota.
Trump raised a similar point early Sunday. The president says, quote, ICE is removing some of the most violent criminals in the world from our country and bring them back home where they belong. Why is Minnesota fighting this? Do they really want murderers and drug dealers to be ensconced in their community, unquote? Miller expanded on the issue of Minnesota officials not letting ICE arrest and deport illegal immigrants. He says another separate issue is that if ICE agents get attacked, local law enforcement personnel can't support the ICE officers.
When ICE goes out to make these arrests, they unleash violent mobs to attack, assault, and impede ICE officers. And they refuse to allow the city police to protect those ICE officers in the conduct of their duties, willfully aiding and abetting this violence.
It's not yet clear if the 1,500 troops will actually be sent to Minnesota. Reports say for now, they only received orders to prepare for possible deployment. The soldiers subject to deployment specialize in cold weather operations and are currently stationed in Alaska. Business and political elites are heading to the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos, Switzerland this week. President Trump is also set to appear there. Trump will be bringing with him the largest U.S. delegation ever. It includes the Secretaries of State, Treasury, Commerce, Trade, and Energy. Topping the agenda is finding a solution to the conflicts in Gaza and Ukraine.
President Trump will also have discussions with European leaders. There will also be 400 other political leaders. So we do hope for a dialogue and also finding a path forward on Gaza, on Ukraine, but also how we can enhance collaboration even in this very complicated world.
Other topics of discussion include the possibility of China invading Taiwan and tensions in the Middle East with the protests in Iran. Trump is also expected to address his economic policy. Brand added that Trump's presence also highlights the importance of cooperation between the private sector and countries which have become more and more indebted. Coming up, the U.S. military announces killing an al-Qaeda affiliate leader. The individual had ties to a gunman who killed 3 U.S. citizens in Syria last month. And protests erupt in central London over plans for a massive new Chinese embassy. Why analysts are saying it could pose a national security risk. More in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
With Select Specs £6 specs, you can get 10 pairs of prescription glasses for just £60. That includes frames, prescription lenses, and delivery free to your door. And what makes this really special is each pair can have a different prescription. So it's glasses for everyone. SelectSpecs.com/£6. 10 frames, all with prescription lenses and anti-scratch coating for just £60. You don't get that on the high street. Right now you can save an extra 5% with offer code CG5OFF.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor. Give this holiday season and your first month's gift will be matched. Thank you.
At the Design Studio by Mathis Home, we're proud to introduce the Becky Owens Home Collection. Inspired by Becky's signature style, this collection brings together timeless designs that are casual yet sophisticated. These warm, organic designs are customizable just for you, all at great values. Discover the perfect balance of style and livability with the Becky Owens Home Collection, because your home should feel as good as it looks. Exclusively at the Design Studio by Mathis Home.
The U.S. military announces killing an al-Qaeda affiliate leader in the Middle East. According to the Pentagon, the individual had ties to a gunman who killed 3 U.S. citizens in Syria last month. U.S. Central Command says, quote, "There is no safe place for those who conduct, plot, or inspire attacks on Americans and our warfighters. We will find you." Military forces killed the al-Qaeda affiliate leader in an airstrike on northwestern Syria on Friday. According to a statement, the individual had strong ties to the ISIS gunman who killed 2 U.S. service members and an interpreter early December. In addition to killing the al-Qaeda affiliate leader, Central Command announces having hit over 100 ISIS infrastructure and weapons sites. War Secretary Pete Hegseth commented on Friday's strikes, saying, quote, "We will never forget and never relent." President Trump clarifies that he never offered to nominate the CEO of JP Morgan for the job of Federal Reserve Chair. The Wall Street Journal first reported on the issue, claiming Trump planned to hire the CEO for the role. The president took to social media commenting on the article by the newspaper. Trump says this statement is totally untrue. There was never such an offer. And, in fact, I'll be suing JP Morgan Chase over the next 2 weeks for incorrectly and inappropriately debanking me after the January 6th protest. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon confirmed Trump's comments on Saturday, saying he wasn't asked to be the Federal Reserve Chair. Dimon is one of Wall Street's most influential figures. He previously came out against some policies of the Trump administration. Dimon voiced support for the independence of the Fed after the Justice Department opened a criminal investigation into the current chair of the Fed. Hundreds of protesters gathered yesterday at the former Royal Mint in London, opposing China's proposed new mega embassy. Demonstrators were warned that Chinese police officers may have blended in among the crowd. It was their last chance to make their voices heard before the government makes a decision on the controversial planning application Tuesday. Chants of mega embassy, mega mistake, don't bow to China, and no mega embassy echoed through the site. The proposed location between the City of London and Canary Wharf has sparked major security concerns. That's because some of the embassy's planned underground rooms would be just feet from fiber optic cables that carry sensitive data across the UK. Analysts fear the embassy could be used as a surveillance hub, while dissidents say it would put them at greater risk of intimidation and repression. Some protesters held signs mocking Prime Minister Keir Starmer alongside Winnie the Pooh, a character often used to criticize Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Many in attendance were members of the Chinese and Hong Kongers now living in exile because of their pro-democracy activism. One Hong Kong dissident explained why the plans terrify her.
Hong Kong authorities placed a 1 million Hong Kong dollar bounty on my head because of calling for democracy in Hong Kong. This embassy will be a spy hub if it is built. There are 208 secret underground rooms under the roaming court, and this will be a spy hub for them to have more resources, more personnel, more diplomats to survey and intimidate Hong Kongers and dissidents here in the UK.
Local residents have already signaled they'll challenge any approval in court. China bought the Royal Mint site in 2018 for more than $300 million. But since then, the plan to build the Chinese mega embassy remains deeply divisive. The government is expected to rule on the proposal on Tuesday. It comes just ahead of Prime Minister Keir Starmer's possible visit to China later this month. Federal prosecutors on Thursday charged 26 people who allegedly participated in fixing college basketball games. Those charged include former and current players who are said to have taken part in rigging 29 games across 17 Division I teams over the past 2 seasons. Here to discuss is the host of Can We Please Talk, Mike Leon. Mike, it's good to see you. As someone who worked in production for ESPN, were you surprised when you found out about this case?
Hey, Chris, good to see you, first off, on a weekend, right? I love it. I wasn't surprised. I mean, look, we saw a scandal unfold with the NBA recently. And when that scandal kind of broke, I used to work with a lot of the betting operators. And, I was talking to somebody high up the food chain on the legal side of one of the betting operators. And they said to me, this is what's supposed to happen, right? This is what comes with legalized gambling is the fact that there are checks and balances put in place by the betting operators to spot betting irregularities. So you mentioned the teams, Chris. I mean, some of these teams, I think the average college basketball fan wouldn't know the school. There are a lot of smaller schools within this. There's obviously some former players that played overseas, and maybe you would know them from yesteryear because one of them played at LSU and things like that. But you wouldn't probably know the schools or the players. And this is why the DraftKings, FanDuels of the world have put these parameters in place to spot betting irregularities on these small market teams, for lack of a better term. And this was caught. And the betting operators will tell you this is what happens. We work in conjunction with law enforcement. We contact the conferences and we contacted the NCAA, and we were able to, work with law enforcement and bring these people, to account.
Yeah, and basically these players were bribed like $10,000 to $30,000 to intentionally lose games or perform poorly, so that the people betting against their team would actually, make money to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is unheard of in these smaller teams. So, an authority has said this basically poisoned the American spirit of competition for monetary gain. I mean, sports are supposed to be this sort of idealistic space, where the best man wins. But so what does this exposure of an alleged fraud ring like this, do to that image, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, it tarnishes it for sure. I think, kind of to piggyback on what you said, Chris, like if we see it at this smaller level and we see it happening with the small level and then we see it happening at the NBA level, it makes people start to question if sports are on the up and up, right? You always hear the conspiracy theories across any league, that game was fixed. This person threw that. You notice an over under, in an NBA game, and all of a sudden a person hits a 3-point shot, a meaningless 3-point shot to cover the spread, and people start to wonder. And that's what this does. This unfortunately feeds into that to tell people, oh, you know what, sports are not on the up and up and they're rigged. And I think, again, like I said, I've worked for a couple teams within the leagues. Obviously, I attended a college in one of the major conferences. One of the players in this scandal, Chris, went to Kennesaw State. Rutgers played Kennesaw State a few years ago in a game that, they weren't supposed to be competitive in. And all of a sudden, they won the game on us. So now I'm starting to sit here as a fan. I'm questioning, our players throwing some of these games. And I know name, image, and likeness is in the college space. So there are people that profit off of their name, image, and likeness, but not at these smaller schools, right? They don't have the big budgets of the Ohio States and Michigans of the world. So it leads for them to do this, right? I won't get caught. I'll go to a third party. I'll miss a couple shots. It'll look like a normal thing. And I'm here to tell you that in this era of legalized gambling, Chris, the betting operators will tell you it's easier now to catch people that are doing this fraudulently than it was yesteryear. And this is a case and example, just like the NBA one was.
Yeah, and it sounds like these guys honestly were showing their hand by placing these massive bets, not really trying to conceal. I mean, these betting markets are, I'm sure, carefully watched. So what do you think should be done to ensure this sort of thing doesn't happen again? Or are they already doing everything they can?
Yeah, see, now that's the great question, because if I had that answer, Chris, I'd be president of the United States, right? Or president of the NCAA, at least, right? I think again, and I'll echo what this person told me with the betting operators, because, you get a lot of these think pieces that come out after the NBA scandal. This is what happens when you get in bed with legalized gambling. And this person said to me, no, this is exactly what you get. You get to catch the bad actors, the people that are moving hundreds of thousands of dollars on individual player props. Like you're seeing Terry Rozier here. All of a sudden, Terry's having a bad game. Meanwhile, he was called Scary Terry in the playoffs because he was known for making big shots, right? So that's what this was meant to catch. I mean, on the NBA level, I can't speak to why a person like Terry Rozier, who was making $27 million a year, would fix games. I mean, or at least try to fix his player props. I mean, how much more could he actually make? For somebody at the University of Albany, Kennesaw State, those players are not making that much, Chris. So I don't know how we level the playing field for those smaller schools. And I think we're going to see more of this. Look, my school at Rutgers, Jeremiah Davis, that was an Ohio State transfer. He was suspended by the NCAA for gambling and betting on a bunch of games. Not betting on himself. He was sitting out, betting on games. I mean, if he can't do that when he's sitting out, when can he bet, right? So, I think it's a Pandora's box. We need a little bit more of the NCAA and Charlie Baker to kind of rein in and set some more parameters. And there needs to be more education to the players in the offseason of look, these are the consequences, lifetime bans, incentivize and de-incentivize people to not do these type of things and set the clear parameters and boundaries.
It's a serious crime that really damages, the public's faith in this important institution. So, Mike Leon, we do have to run. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
Coming up, overcoming mental barriers to achieve optimal health and success. Vital Signs' Brendan Fallon and entrepreneur Mark Hutchison look at how a leading American neurosurgeon overcame a life crisis to rediscover balance. Stay tuned.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day, becoming a better version of myself.
There are real consequences to controlled media. And NTD's founders know them firsthand. Our freedom of thought is the price. This is the lesson that guides us in everything we do.
So there's the tear gas there.
We know the value of a free society. And we take seriously the responsibility to preserve it. We are NTD.
Welcome back to NTD. Vital Signs' Brendan Fallon and entrepreneur Mark Hutchison now talk about how to boost health and performance. They include the example of how a leading American neurosurgeon put his life back on track.
Mark, it's fantastic to have you join us on the show today. I'm really flattered that you're here. You've been following the show for some time, and I know you've had some benefit from it. You're a very successful businessman, I know. Why don't you say a little bit about what you've been doing and what brings you to New York?
Yeah, well, thank you, Brendan. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Been a big fan of the show for many years. In fact, many of the principles that you've shared I've actually adopted into my life, and I'm very, very grateful to be here and say thanks to NTD and to you and your show.
Fantastic. And I know you're telling me that you've gained some knowledge through this show, and some of the things you were saying to me, it really ties into a recent video that we've both watched with this incredible neurosurgeon, Dr. Joseph Maroon.
Joseph, yeah. Yep.
Such a humble man, so accomplished, a neurological consultant for the Philadelphia Steelers. And this man suffered a huge life crisis at the age of 41. So we're going to play this clip, and so the audience can see what this man went through and how he started to get back from that.
Thank you.
I was chief of neurosurgery at the University Hospital in Pittsburgh, and within the course of a week, my father died suddenly at age 60 of a massive heart attack. I was 40 at the time, because I devoted too much effort to my career and to neglecting a few other parts of my life. My marriage broke up, and I had to quit neurosurgery all the same week. So I went from literally doing awake brain surgery on patients with tumors in eloquent parts of the brain to working in a dilapidated truck stop that my father, heavily mortgaged, bequeathed to my mother. So for a year, literally, I was flipping hamburgers and filling up 18-wheelers and wondering, how did this happen to me? I was overweight, and after several months, the banker who held the mortgage on the truck stop called me and said, you know, Joe, let's go for a run. I said, I can't hardly walk up a flight of steps, but I made it down to a high school track in Wheeling. We went around 4 times. I said, never again. But that night was the first night I slept in about several months.
Quite profound to make that discovery, like to go for a run and find that has such a positive effect on mental health. Mm. In line with this, Mark, I know you've faced your own life crisis. I know you've probably faced a number in your life, but one more recently that probably resonates with this a little bit.
Yeah, often you find that the business condition is actually similar to the condition of the entrepreneur that runs it. So if the entrepreneur is out of balance, if he finds himself out of balance physically or spiritually, the business can often mimic that. And I had that this year, year of the snake, where things just broke down. Body broke down, the business broke down. It really was a point of crisis, and I leaned on and had to basically lean on a lot of these principles that you see that Dr. Joe was saying about how to use health, how to use diet, how to use the principles that you talk about in Vital Signs. I've been a big fan for years, and adopting those into my life and not taking them for granted.
What would you say was what would you put as paramount among those principles, just to start off that conversation?
I took a lot away from the research that you have been doing around mental health, and I took a lot of research around what you've been doing around diet and about a keto diet. And my family always talked about insulin resistance, and I think I'd be the poster child for adrenal overload. And that all leads to basically the body breaking down. That's what I found this year, that basically the body started to break down. And by looking after my body and learning some of the principles that I'd seen in the show and following some of these doctors and some of that research, I was able to develop life hacks like fasting and like talking about better sleep and talking about removing some of the carbohydrates from the diet, and it made a significant and profound effect on my life. And I was able in the last year to basically rebuild, not only rebuild the body, but actually rebuild my mind. And then from that, I became like clear, I feel like I became more intelligent, and I actually was able to have that resilience needed to make decisions. And instead of pushing decisions away from myself, I was actually able to bring everything, own it, fix it, and move forward. And here we are today looking for business opportunities in New York, which wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for these wonderful principles.
Yeah, astounding. And I like the way it spans from the physical, the kind of surface level health considerations to something almost on a soul level. We'll play a clip again from Dr. Maroon, and I think this ties into what you're saying about how the body can play that role in bringing health to the mind, and vice versa.
We know the mind can make the body very sick, heart attacks, strokes, irritable bowel syndrome, but the body can heal the mind.
What was happening?
And what was happening is I was rebooting my neurotransmitters. I was getting my serotonin up and my acetylcholine, my memory was improving naturally, without drugs, without pharmacologic agents. After the course of a year, I lost weight. I was able to My brain started to work again, and I completely changed my own dietary habits and my lifestyle. I realized that I was burned out when I was working.
This phenomenon, I actually asked Dr. Maroon about this, like what is burnout exactly? We hear this term so much these days in society, and he talked about this, I believe, this kind of exhaustion across all domains, physical, mental, and losing this enthusiasm for life.
I think entrepreneurs, you've always got a lot of decisions to make, and you're always under a lot of pressure. And if the body is basically unhealthy, I found that by focusing back this year on making my body healthy, getting good sleep, reducing the amount of carbs, looking at this intralistinus, looking at the adrenal overload, getting all the basics back in life. When I saw the interview with Dr. Joseph, I thought that's my life, right there, and that's the life of many entrepreneurs. They focus on trying to win, trying to prove themselves. A lot of entrepreneurs are trying to prove themselves and just trying to bring everything back into balance. And for me, it was about getting my life back into balance by also having a bit more faith, having a bit more time for the body, having a bit more time to eat well, having more time to reflect. And in that process, it's been quite the remarkable journey. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's. I think we have a tendency, people who are ambitious and have this expectation of high achievement, to sometimes distract ourselves with things. There's a deeper issue there. It might be trauma. It might be some kind of pain, and we put these other things in front of us. I've got to meet this deadline, and I've got to get this done. I've got to meet this financial target, and it's a kind of a distraction from dealing with the deeper issue in a lot of ways, I think.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, you look at them, they've actually faced trauma, and a lot of them are actually trying to prove themselves, and that was me, 100% to the key. Early childhood trauma, wanting to prove myself, and you get this thing called the imposter syndrome. And you'll see that spread around, and it actually is a real thing where you basically end up distracting yourself with all these micro things. We're not actually dealing with the things that matter. And for this year, the journey has been to be quiet and resilient, and getting my body back and getting my physical health back has strengthened my mind and made me more clear. And it made me realize there's so many habits and so many things that I do that are basically sabotaging myself. And it's being able to clear those things out. So I just focus on the mind, I don't focus on the body, I can't fix it. If I can focus on the body but not on the mind, I can't fix it. When I get that whole thing in balance and go back to faith and do my meditation and reflection and seeing what's the cause, what's my cause in the problem. I've been able to shift mountains this year, build a brand new factory in Vietnam, a whole lot of great stuff, even being a single parent with a couple of kids. Being able to do it and in balance by bringing these life hacks, and a lot of that knowledge has come from this wonderful network, and especially from your show.
I appreciate you saying that, Mark. It's one of the things that you mentioned, talking about quiet time, that stood out to me. And for me, it's recently, over the past year as well, it was finding that space just to let myself sit and ground myself. And then after a period of time, these instincts start to kick back in for how to look after myself better and adopt a better lifestyle, healthier lifestyle. Here we have Dr. Maroon talking, I believe, about fear, this next clip, and how this affects the body. And this is a pervasive phenomenon in society.
So when you become overstressed, your body, your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, turns on your adrenal glands to make excess cortisol and also excess adrenaline epinephrine. And when these are at high levels for prolonged periods of time, literally destroys brain cells in your hippocampus that subserves memory. Your memory goes, and it also affects your decision making, your attention, and clearly contributes to neurodegenerative disease, chronic unremitting stress.
It's something that I've personally dealt with, and again, I think getting into that quiet space, you start to have some separation from these feelings of anxiety. I don't know if you've had an experience along those lines, Mark.
I think fear is the backbone of a lot of entrepreneurial drive, but I've come to realize that it's actually a negative. Fear is obviously you're trying to control the situation, and I come to understand that we can't really control too much. But the fear was driving me into this state of adrenal overload where I actually was, the whole body was being broken down, my mental clarity was being broken down. So getting back to actually reflection and standing back. So one of the things I had a sort of health crisis when we were over in Europe this year, and I came back and said, oh, I'm not going back to work every day, because entrepreneurs are trying to prove themselves. They're going, I've got to be the busiest guy in the room. I've got to be the most important guy in the room. And I says, no, I've got to step back from that. I've got to empower other people. I've got to step back and have that time to reflect and see what's my cause in things. And that reflection and that identifying that fear and that imposter syndrome in the last sort of 5 to 6 months has been revolutionary for me, where I can actually turn that back into a positive and see all these negative things as actually positive things. And that's where we've been able to get some amazing breakthroughs, both in the team and the family and in my health.
It's fantastic to hear. Is there anything else you'd like to add as far as what these kind of life hacks that you've adopted to improve your health and improve your performance?
Yeah, I often find myself sending your segments or clips from your segments to my management team. Everything from getting to bed by 10 o'clock, by 10:30, that was a game changer for me. Getting up early, doing meditation, that was a game changer for me. Getting in time, making time to stop and reflect. Even some of the things around seed oils and wheat and carbohydrate loading, all that, as soon as I tested those things, I was able to immediately have an immediate and positive reaction on my body. So these things have actually, entrepreneurs are always trying to be their optimum. They're always trying to be high performers. And by adopting these principles, I've been able to basically become back to the high performer I was when I first started, before I broke myself down with fear, anxiety, and stress.
Fantastic story, Mark, and it's really great to have that feedback, to know how that these tips and speaking to these experts is actually reaching people and they're benefiting from it. And really great to have you join us today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And thank you to this wonderful network. We appreciate it. Love being here.
And we'll go back to Chris now in the studio, and this full video is available to see on the Vital Signs website.
That's right. You can see it at ept.ms/brain/saver. All right, coming up, we learn about some dogs. A special dog used his teeth and his wits to break out of a locked animal shelter. Stay with us.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now at shenyun.com.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. You may know me from my many years on television. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I felt this slight pressure on my chest, just slight. I thought, oh, it's nothing, it'll go away. I didn't get it. I did not get it. But a few days later, while shopping at a boutique, that pressure returned, much stronger. It felt like an elephant pressing on my chest. I had a 90% blockage in my main artery and a 75% blockage in the adjacent artery. I was rushed into surgery where I received 2 stents in my arteries. Stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. That's why I'm in front of you today, asking you to join me in supporting the American Heart Association by becoming a monthly donor. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. I'm so grateful to the American Heart Association. Their research helped save my life. I can enjoy life with my children, my grandchildren, and my friends. Heart disease is America's #1 killer. And your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives. Please, listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives. Thank you.
This is Pho-licious. Now, what is pho? It's an authentic Vietnamese noodle dish. The Pho-licious chicken pho brings the comforting, aromatic flavors of Vietnam to your bowl, and Mama Thu's signature spice blend. Well, this chicken pho is as close to homemade as it gets without the wait. Some cubed chicken, a little lime, and then the magic moment. See you soon, my friends.
Pho-licious is now available at your local Walmart or walmart.com.
Welcome back. A dog uses its wits and its teeth to break out of a locked animal shelter, and a deer squares up against a 2-ton rhino. Take a look.
Sheriff's officials in Washington state say a dog was unharmed after dashcam video showed it being launched from a car that crashed during a pursuit. Pierce County deputies say a driver fled a traffic stop, setting off the chase, which ended when the vehicle crashed into an embankment. The dog can be seen flying out of the car, landing on its feet, and running away. Another small dog was found hiding behind the driver's seat, and the department said both dogs were recovered and were unharmed in the incident. As for the driver, he was arrested and is facing multiple charges. An amazing escape unfolded at an animal shelter in West Virginia when one very smart dog got out of its kennel after hours and headed to the front door, which was locked. But this problem-solving pooch, named Dawson, can be seen opening the lock with its teeth before exiting. The shelter says Dawson was found and returned days later, and said the viral escape video has since led to more than $15,000 in donations to the organization. Finally, speaking of viral, a very unlikely showdown went just that when a Polish zoo shared a video online showing a tiny muntjac deer squaring up against a nearly 2-ton rhino and not backing down. The zoo said the daring display of deer daring do was likely because the small animal's mate was in heat and it was burning off a little pent-up aggression.
The newly announced Gaza Governance Board will be overseen by President Trump and top allies. Critics say the absence of Palestinian representation raises concerns, while the White House says additional members will be announced in the coming weeks.
The White House on Friday announced the names of President Donald Trump's Board of Peace that will supervise the temporary governance of Gaza. Trump himself will oversee the board, which includes US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair was also confirmed to be involved. The White House did not detail the responsibilities of each member. However, Nikolai Mladenov, a former UN Middle East envoy, will be the High Representative for Gaza. The names did not include any Palestinians. Palestinians in Khan Yunis on Saturday expressed both their concern and hope.
The most important thing is to open the border crossing. And when the plan continues, by opening the space for it to work, and the board to work in the country, and for them to help the people, because we are in a miserable situation in the country, a catastrophic situation.
The White House said more members will be announced over the coming weeks.
That is all for today's news. Thank you for tuning in. Stay with us for NTD Evening News at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 Pacific.